Okay, so if you're still listening to this podcast at this stage, this is the boring stuff. This is the disclaimer. And I'm doing this because, yes, I do care about who you are and what you do with your money. And I'm going to be here to help give you some ideas. However, these are just ideas, they're theories. Sometimes these are ideas that are coming into my head based on what's going on in the world at this time. And they're not necessarily specific financial advice. I do encourage you, if you decide to do anything with your money, make any changes, seek the advice of a professional. You're welcome to follow up with me or with someone else and make sure that what you're doing is something that fits with you, your lifestyle, your finances, and it's a strategy that's specific to you. Again, these are ideas and concepts. Do not necessarily take these as specific financial advice and follow it directly without having a full education. Hello, I'm Chanel, and I am a taxable wealth strategist. And this is the next episode of Crap, Now What? And I'm excited to share that I know that there are some people who have found this podcast and in different parts of the world, even. And it's been very exciting for me to have that feedback that the ideas and concepts that I'm presenting, which sometimes do come from left field a little bit, are still helpful. So, the spirit of crap, now what is the difference between being informed versus uninformed? And what I do is I share the idea of some financial concepts, ways to possibly improve your future from the spirit of the fact that I actually care about you and how you feel about your money and being able to enjoy the largest percentage of your money possible. So if this is the first time you found me, now you have the idea of where we're going to head with these topics. If you've listened to other episodes, welcome back, because today we're going to talk a little bit about politics. Now, the timing of the airing of this particular episode will be well past the fact that we just had a presidential debate last night. And I am going to talk a little bit about that, not necessarily from the left side or the right side or the Democratic side or the Republican side. I want to share with you a few ideas because some of the things that were discussed, as we all know, candidates are there to make an impression during a debate. And the impression is to reach out to the largest number of people in the audience to get elected. They're there to present their case, to share their concepts to the possible and the largest possible audience that they can reach. So you will see that if you go back and watch the debate that would have aired last night, in my case, on the 27th of June, you haven't watched it and haven't started to hear about it, I encourage you to be informed. Be familiar with what people are talking about because it is very important. And I had not been that dialed in. I'm going to be honest with you. I had news PTSD for many years, and now I got sucked back in. So that's part of the reason why this is the conversation. I was having conversations with people and friends last night. Some people got frustrated because certain areas were not addressed. Fair enough. Uh, Everybody dodges bullets to a certain degree. What you will see, though, each candidate is taking on their role based on their team of controlling the narrative as best as possible and reaching to the most possible voters. What didn't get talked about much is the taxes. And this is what we're going to talk about in this episode is how important the taxes are. And I'm looking here to pull up a slide and I'm going to share my screen about taxes in history. because this is going to be relevant to everybody. This is what I want to talk about in terms of the fact that every election is important. And when I do my in-person workshops, and a lot of times on this particular platform for the podcast, I talk about the fact that in many ways, it doesn't really matter necessarily who we elect. And I could get shot down from left and right, but anybody who's been around the political world and paid any attention, we keep spinning our wheels on the same topics over and over and over again. The more than 34 trillion that we actually owe in national debt, the fact that that clock is going like crazy. I've done an episode on that. I think it's going to be airing here sometime very soon. We know that when it comes down to it, that it's not just the president, it's the Congress, it's how things get stalled and how decisions kind of keep getting thrown, as I've used this term before, further on down the road and let someone else deal with it. However, what I did notice in the debate is that there was not much discussed about where we're really sitting for tax rates. And part of the reason I have this forum is because there are strategies that people who are younger and getting started can adopt to put themselves in a better position in the future and not necessarily defer taxes to a period where they don't know what kind of tax rates there will be. There are strategies for people now who are getting closer and closer to retiring that they can at least work to untax their tax deferred accounts as much as cutting it in half. What many people aren't necessarily familiar with, and I wish it would have been discussed a little bit more, is that the historic marginal tax rates. That red line is showing the highest tax rates and the lowest marginal tax rates. The blue is the lowest. Now, this isn't as current as it could be. It does show through 2008, from 1912, though, to 2008. You may not be familiar or informed that tax rates do fluctuate. And it fluctuates based on how the government shifts in order to collect tax dollars. Some of the highest years, it's almost unbelievable to me, and I've said this over and over again, I said it several times this week in my workshops, that coming off of the Depression and coming off of the wars, First World War and the Second World War, almost 90% taxes. Again, I can't even imagine families. In those days, families were feeding multiple people in their household, far more than the average household now. I don't know the exact number. I just know that a lot of people, especially in the Midwest, farming communities, had multiple children. I can't imagine trying to feed, clothe, heaven forbid, if we were to extrapolate that out to a household now where it's $11,000, it was a statistic from last night, $11,000 per household per kid a year for childcare. I can't even imagine. Right now, and part of the reason I'm really fired up about this is that it was not really discussed at length, and there were missed opportunities for one particular candidate probably to mention this. But it's important to you to know, and I want you to know and be informed, that there are going to be tax cuts that we're enjoying now. We are at actually some of the lowest marginal tax rates in history. And those tax cuts that we got in 2017 under a former president's administration, and again, I'm not trying to say one way or the other because I just told you in this disclosure that it almost doesn't really matter. And the word on this sheet says Congress. If Congress doesn't step in to extend these tax cuts that have been in place since 2017, they will end in 2025. I've talked to several people in the accounting world, tax prep specialists. They're all hopeful. Nobody really knows, but you need to be informed that your future is still uncertain as to where those tax rates are going to land. And we also know, and I've been on this bandwagon a little bit, that most people are expecting taxes to continue to go up. That logically, it makes sense that the government is going to have to raise taxes in order to continue to provide benefits like Social Security, which is one of the largest chunks of the budget, to continue to be able to support healthcare programs, to be able to continue to support Medicaid, Medicare, the subsidies. Nobody wants to see those things go away, and we're going to continue at least for another generation to have one of the largest groups of older people coming through the pipeline, and nobody's going to want to take those benefits away from people. So where does the money come from? Go away at the end of 2025, just so that you can be completely informed. There are a number of things that are set to go away at the end of 2025, and they do affect almost every household. I've talked about many of these in different stages of this podcast and in this forum, but we're going to come back around one more time. Individual income tax rates will go back to 2017, which is a higher level. The standard deduction will be cut in half, and the personal exemption will return. So for those of you who have your taxes prepared by someone else, you may or may not be familiar with what this is actually saying, but they're essentially, households got to the point where a certain amount is just taken right off in the calculation of adjusted gross income. And they're saying that that's going to be changed, and there's going to be less that is taken off of the top of how much money a household or income is making, or if you're filing single. And that means that we'll be paying taxes on a larger percentage of our income. For those who have the benefit of having children, I know sometimes there's even jokes about when does that child get born, whether it's going to be in if it's going to be a New Year's baby or not. Do we try to get them in one tax year versus the next tax year? This is kind of referring to that. The idea that there's going to be some changes in the tax credit for children and raising children, the extra 20%, the special 20% tax deduction for pass-through businesses. So businesses will be also affected. So not only will small business owners be affected on their business taxes, but also on their personal taxes based on some of the other things that are listed on this page. The cap on the state and local income tax. And you got to just love it. The whole world is full of acronyms, especially government programs. Look at the reference to Tax Cut and Jobs Act, TCJA, and then SALT. You don't have to memorize those. Just know that there's going to be some changes there too. And then, of course, when somebody passes on and they leave an estate, there's going to be some adjustments there too, so that there's still another way to tax the money that gets left behind to the beneficiaries and to the heirs that desire to be able to save up and pass on money that gets taxed as well. And we've talked about that in this forum, that there are so many different levels of taxes that it's really hard to keep up with them. But I'm really fired up about this today, and I really wanted to share with you so that you would be informed that there's going to be some changes in the taxes at the end after 2025 seems like a long ways away, so there'll be taxes and filings for 2024 under current guidelines. Under 2025, the same. It's really not going to be in effect until 2026. However, it's still a very important topic, and I want you, number one, to be as informed as possible. I encourage you to stay on top of what's going on in our country. There are a number of different things, a number of different initiatives. There are a lot of very important things that do ride on who we actually elect, whether it's local or national. And you should be as informed as possible so that you can make a decision based on how you feel and how you would like at least to try to cast your vote. We are lucky enough in this country to be able to cast a vote and have our voice at least possibly be heard. So be as informed as you possibly can. Strongly consider your financial future. Inflation isn't necessarily going to go away. There's going to be more and more things that are going on with our country. I already touched on the fact that there was some discussion about how much childcare costs, and the moderators were encouraging the candidates to talk about how they were going to help families. I'm going to be honest, I'm very skeptical that any politician would be able to really help a household on that level. I'm hopeful because I'm watching families struggle to be able to pay for childcare, and that they're working 2 jobs, multiple jobs, and having 2 income earners in a household in many cases, and still not be able to enjoy their life current or be able to save up the money to be able to retire. So this forum is here to tell you that there are ways at least to shift how money is saved throughout lifetime so that you can have the best possible retirement ever. That said, everybody's situation is very different. I want you to be as informed as possible, but these are opinions. These are not solutions. They're ideas. They are clearly ideas that sometimes I get from watching a world event and get a little fired up over, but I want to share those ideas with you in the spirit that you should always try to be as informed as possible, always apply ideas specific to your situation after you've had a chance to have an education. If you like these ideas, though, I do invite you. We drop a new podcast episode every week. I do in-person workshops. I did several on taxes, on Social Security, and the impression and the decisions that need to be made this past week in Wichita. I'm doing and hosting a workshop on women and wealth in Bentonville, the 15th and 16th of July. We cut these podcasts down into little slices and they're posted on social media. So anything that you can search that says Blazing Star, absolutely, you should be able to find it. The podcast is on all the major channels and also posted on the website, Go Blazing Star. I am so blessed to have an amazing team. Ren's Marketing with Michaela and Hans, who helped to produce, editing, and posting. The whole team contributes. That also includes Caleb at Sal Media, wonderful people. And I hope to see you again viewing these podcasts and sharing these concepts with others.